Alright then guys, this is Yara here and I'm over here with Christian, who has been tearing it up at our locals. He actually went second earlier this week, then he went first, and then he went second today, so he's been topping left and right. So what are you playing today, Christian?
I am playing DRYTRON.
Alright, and then do you have any shout outs or anything you want to say before we start?
I'm going to shout out the lovely owner of this deck, Michael.
Okay.
He's been letting me borrow this deck for the last couple of weeks because I'm about to go off to college.
Okay.
And I don't really want to, you know, pay $350 for a deck that I'm only going to play for like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's been very charitable and very, you know, gracious to let me borrow this deck. So I'm very happy that I can actually play at my locals today, and it's all thanks to him.
Alright, then alright. This is Michael, the MVP.
Most definitely.
Alright, and so if you want, we can get started with the deck profile.
The main deck, DRYTRONs are standard. We just got, you know, the 3 alphas, the 3 zetas, the 2 gammas, or 3 gammas, and then the 2 deltas.
Yeah.
Some people are kind of weird about 3 gamma, but I think 3 is pretty good because you always want to see at least one of these, either in your starting hand or not. If you open one of these and another one, you can just activate this first, make the move beta, and get all your materials, and so you kind of get more things to work with if you do this first. Also, this can be bait a lot of time if you have anything else in your hand. So they're really good. This is really good to keep going after your opponent has no hand traps, or to bait out all the other hand traps. Some people only play 1 delta. I think that's kind of weird because you want to play as many names as humanly possible. And also the draws are really good later on in the turn since we're not playing Prosperity, so we can always get the draws no matter what. But that's just for our main deck lineup of DRYTRONs. Next we're playing the 1 Ben 10, the 1 Ida 10, the 1 Natasha, the 1 Ultimateness, and then the 1 Draconite. I've actually come into a lot of situations where this has been like the blowout card because, you know, we're not always trying to end on this depending on what whether we're going first or second. Because if we're going second, I'm trying to either blow my opponent out with Dragoon or make this. Yeah. So it's really good to have Draconids in the main deck. It gives you another target for rituals because sometimes you run out of them in the middle of the turn. You know, after turn 1, this is a really good card to get on, especially if you're playing against Prank Kids. They normal summon, you just send it off. Tri-Brigade, they normal summon. If you think they're about to activate and go for a link, activate the effect and send it. You know, this is a good, like, going second or a good turn 2 option. Ultimateness, I don't really need to explain. Natasha has been pretty underrated in my mind until I kept stealing it multiple times in the same game. Natasha, I think, is really underrated. And then the 2 best ones, Ida 10 and Ben 10, just kind of speak for themselves. There's just, after turn 1, Ben 10's not really necessary because you use this the most, you use Ben 10 the most on turn 1 and Ida 10 the most after every other turn because you just want to keep looping your ritual spells. Next for the fairy count, where you got, again, triple diviner, triple orange, double Ava. Some people only play 1 Ava. I think that's because they want to see less bricks in the deck because sometimes seeing this is kind of a brick, but also you can use it to make move beta, so it's not like you're really losing out on too much. So I think 2 is really good because, you know, on your end combo, you activate Ava on your turn, you grab your 2. On the draw phase in the next turn, on your opponent's turn, just activate the second one. So, you know, depending on the combo that this one makes, it gives you 5 negates, you know, Dragoon with 1 and then Ultimateness with 4. You know, there's not really much you can do to that. And if you get Dark Ruler, then you have 2 monster negates in hand, so it's not like you're really going to lose too much off of 2. That's it for that. We also play Dragoon, so we have the Dark Magician and the Red Eyes. So, for the spells, we have 1 Mediumness, you know, 3 Nova, and 3 Emergency. These are the in-archetype, not in-archetype, but these are the ones that search the DRYTRONs mostly, and these are the ones that work with them the most. There's not really much to say because these are just standard numbers. You always want to see them, and if you can open at least one of them, you open another name, that's just perfect. Some people actually do play 2 ritual spell. I think 2 is a little bricky because unless you're playing triple delta, you're not always trying to see this because you can search it, and if it ends up in your opening hand, it's kind of a brick because you want to see as many non-combo pieces as possible outside of Alpha Zeta. So if you can get this out of your deck by like Zeta, or if you draw this card, if you draw it's fine, but you want to search this off Zeta more times than not. And for the rest of the full power spells, we have triple Droplet, triple Tactics, and then we have 1 Call By and then the 1 Ref. Forbidden Droplet I think is really good going second, and so is Tactics, but there's been many times where Tactics has came up, and I've also mentioned to Michael once or twice that we should probably play Prosperities, but there's been multiple times where I've come across Prosperity, or I've come across like a Tactics in my hand, and you know, I get drolled, and I'm like, oh, that sucks, but I end up having the Tactics, so I can take a look at my opponent's hand, and depending on what they're playing, I can take out a really good combo piece. So I think Tactics is really good right now. I think Prosperity is also really good, but Prosperity also conflicts with the Delta, so I think that's kind of a point of contention in the deck. I think these are just really good. Droplet speaks for itself. I don't really need to explain the call by and the ref, but that's our main deck.
Okay.
And then for the extra deck, we have 2 Mu Beta, 2 Arclight, and 1 Entis. Okay. This kind of goes for like the main like DRYTRON fairies. You know, 2 Mu Beta is really good because you can, if your first one gets stopped, it's fine. You can still use the second one for materials because that's not an effect that's only once per turn. The second Arclight, I find really good if you don't need to use all the heralds in your hand for ultimateness, because then you can just summon another one, and if you haven't run out of fairies, if you haven't run out of ritual monsters in your deck, you can just go grab another one since you're not always going to run through them, because sometimes if you don't draw a DRYTRON, you're kind of going to be stuck if you don't really have another one, unless you just want to pitch off your ultimateness, unless it's still there. The 1 Entis is used for spot removal. If my opponent never activates Order, send Entis. If your opponent ever activates Summon Limit, send Entis. Your opponent ever summons a problem, send Entis.
Yeah.
It's just spot removal. And then for Link monsters, we have Link Kuribo, IP, and Appaloosa. These are really good. I thought about maybe making this a Boral Sword, because I did come up with a combo that ends on Boral Sword and Draconids just off of Alpha and Zeta. So I thought that'd be really good depending on what, you know, who I'm playing against or what decks. But I don't really need to speak for Link Kuribo. IP and Appaloosa are pretty good depending on what deck I'm playing against. I almost never make these anymore because Dragoon and Ultimateness just happen to be enough on their own. But I think Appaloosa is really good in the later turns, where if you can break your opponent's board going second, you can end on this card and hopefully end on a Dragoon, so you don't have to worry about too much what your opponent's going to do next. We're playing the 1 Chaos Ruler because there have been many times where I've had this deck. I've opened 1 DRYTRON and 1 Diviner, or one or the other. I've opened a DRYTRON and Ben 10 or whatever, not 2 DRYTRONs. And I've gotten to the point where I was like, you know, this card will almost always send another name, so it gets another one into my hand to start looping, or not looping, but it gives me more cards to work with. And it's fine because also if you mill off an Ava, just don't pick up the Ava, activate Ava's effect, you know, banish your 2 fairies, add your Diviner and your orange, and so you have an effect negate on your turn if this gets hit, or if you're gonna make Dragoon later, you don't want to get, you know, Gamma, you don't want to get Veilered. The 1 Beatrice speaks for itself. It's standard combo. It sends your Ava, sends any other DRYTRON pieces that you need if you just happen to end up with it. We play Vertaine Dragoon. This is plan B, or it's the end of combo. And I say it's plan B because against some decks, I'll special summon the Vertaine as bait. Against Prank Kids, I'll special summon the Vertaine to bait out their Battle Butler, because I'll have other cards in my hand and I don't always need the Dragoon. But if they're going to bait to get, like if they're going to commit to get rid of this, that's fine. I don't need the Dragoon to win. I have other ways, but this is just a good thing because there's not a lot of decks that can also get around this. Prank Kids has a hard time to get around it. Striker has a hard time getting around it. The only decks that really have a better time getting around it are things like Tri-Brigade. Invoke should all have a good time getting rid of it with Schism, or any of their fusion monsters with sending Alistair. You know, those are the only real threats to Dragoon outside of a Droplet, Triple Tactics. And you know, Triple Tactics also came up where I stole someone else's Dragoon in the mirror, burned him, linked it off, made my own Dragoon, and attacked him for game. But that's Dragoon. And then we're playing just the standard Xyz package where it comes to Lyrilusk, Downard, and Zeus. Lyrilusk is really good because I also didn't know until I read the card that this is, if you use the second effect, it cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, and also you take no damage involving the card. So it's basically like Fucho, but it's just a better version. No, it's not better, but it's just, you know, a substitute, because there's not a lot of the time where people can just one-off banish a card like this. So, you know, I don't really need to speak for the rest of them. And then for the side deck, we're playing random ref. We have triple Nibiru, triple Ghost Spell, the triple of Spell Trap removal, double Twisters, and 1 Harpy's Feather. triple Dark Ruler, and then double Impermanence, and then 1 Lancia.
Okay.
Some people are kind of weird about the like 1 Lancia, 2 Lancia, or 3. I think 1 is good because you don't really like it's searchable off of Benton, and if you have full combo anyways, it's not like you really are gonna want to see this because you can just hit every hand trap anyway, or you hit every piece of interaction that your opponent has. The double Impermanence is good going second if your opponent has like Battle Butler. You know, you just hit it, or you hit any effect negate, Boral Savage, Battle Butler, Winda, anything that would cause a problem, you can just hit with it. Same thing goes for Dark Ruler. We don't really need to worry about things going second. Yeah. And since it's not once per turn, if your opponent just schisms a Winda out again, just activate it again, it's not that big of a problem. I don't really need to explain this because our biggest problem is mine. Yeah. Any set back rows like Order or Eldritch, just get them out of the way. The bells are really good against a lot of different... They're really good against Prinkids from what I've seen. Yeah. They're also good against DRYTRON as well. Yeah. You can't really hit Tri-Brigade with any of them because they all banish for cost, which really sucks, but that's just something that comes with it. Also, some people aren't playing Nibiru in DRYTRON, but I mean, seeing this card and going second is fine because you can still activate it on like your opponent's turn, tribute their whole board, and then this is also another material for Dragoon. So it's not like you really need to worry too much about getting rid of this or not, because you can still pop the token with the Dragoon. It's not like there's really much of a problem with it. Or you can just Entis it off, or run it over with something. It's not like you really need to worry about it. But, you know, you're never going to be activating this on your turn anyways, since no deck summons 5 times on your turn. But that's the list. All right, and I have a question. There's a lot of people that are new to this deck, and like, would you give them any tips to like getting the hang of everything? Yeah. A really good piece of advice is just to look up the combos on YouTube. Okay. There's a lot of places that Alpha Zeta can go, Alpha Gamma, Gamma Zeta. There's a lot of places it can go. So you just kind of have to look at, you know, what's my hand look like? Because this is I wouldn't say, it's a very resource-oriented deck, but it can blow through its resources very quickly. You need to know what cards what DRYTRONs am I going to pitch out of hand if my play gets stopped? Or what cards are more useful in the graveyard? What card gets me more extensions? You need to know the ins and outs of the deck and exactly what does what in each matchup, or else you're going to commit to a play and you're going to commit the wrong card and you're like, oh, that's a problem. I just locked myself out of what was game. So. All right, and thank you so much, Christian, for the deck profile. Any closing thoughts or anything? You know, thanks again for Yada for hosting me. You know, thanks again to Michael for letting me borrow the deck. It's been very gracious. You know, we've been playing older formats, just chilling out, having a lot of fun. And it's been a lot of fun time just hanging out and, you know, playing with friends again. So I'm really happy to be back at locals. Yeah, for sure. All right, then, Christian. Thank you so much. Yeah, of course.